I mean, God's patient with us as humans. We mess up at times, but I don't feel like he throws us away as individuals. So it's different things and different life lessons, you got to go through. And I haven't went through this situation, that I'm in ever. So it's really just a test, I feel like from God or whoever it's from, it's just a test. But anyway, I'm just thankful that I was able to see the day of light and get out there.
There is a room in Cleveland where nobody is talking, but everybody is watching. Every throw, every footwork drill, every single rep. Because somewhere in that building, a decision is being made that will define the next era of Browns football, and right now, nobody outside those walls knows for certain which way it is going to go. For months, the story seemed settled. Deshaun Watson, the veteran, the former franchise cornerstone, was supposed to walk back into that starting job the moment his body allowed it. He had the resume. He had the contract. He had the trust of an organization that bet everything on him years ago. And when spring practices wrapped up, that was still the read around the league. Watson was ahead. Not by a mile, but ahead. The kind of lead that looks comfortable from the outside, the kind that makes people stop asking questions. But somebody forgot to tell Shedeur Sanders that the race was already over. Because while the cameras were pointed elsewhere, while the storylines had already been written, something was shifting quietly in the background. Representatives were being logged. Progressions were being read. And the young quarterback who spent his rookie year being picked apart, questioned, and doubted, was doing something nobody expected. He was catching up. Rewind for a second. Because to understand how big this moment actually is, you need to understand what Sanders was walking through just months ago. His rookie season was not kind to him. It was rough. It was public. Analysts were lining up to point out the same flaw over and over again. The idea that he was not playing within the rhythm of the offense, that he was operating on his own internal clock instead of the one his coordinator needed him to follow. Hesitation in the pocket. Sacks that should have been avoided. A young player trying to process an entire professional playbook in real time in front of millions of people with zero room for error. That is the version of Shedeur Sanders everyone thought they knew walking into this offseason. A talented arm, sure. A famous name, absolutely. But a quarterback with a glaring hole in his game that a battle-tested veteran like Watson simply did not have. And then the summer started, and the story began to change. Because according to league insiders now watching this camp unfold in real time, something has moved. The gap that once looked comfortable for Watson is no longer comfortable. It is closing. Fast. Reports out of Cleveland this week describe a Sanders who looks sharper, more decisive, more in control of the offense than the version fans watched struggle through his rookie campaign. Pocket presence that used to break down under pressure is now holding. Progressions that used to stall are now flowing. The player who once looked lost in the speed of the NFL is starting to look like he belongs in it. Think about what that actually means. Watson is not just some replaceable roster piece. He is a quarterback the organization once tied its entire future to, a player who is still working his way back from one of the most brutal injury sagas in recent NFL memory, a twice-torn Achilles that would end most careers outright. For Sanders to be closing that distance right now, while Watson is still fighting to prove his body can hold up, is not a small development. It is a seismic one. And here is where the tension really builds, because this is not happening in isolation. The Browns are not just carrying two quarterbacks into this summer. They have four. Watson, Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, the third-round pick from a year ago, and Taylen Green, a rookie the team is quietly excited about. 4 arms, 1 job, and a front office that has to make the kind of decision that will either save this franchise years of frustration or send it spiraling into yet another quarterback controversy. There is another layer to this story too, one that rarely gets talked about outside of coaching circles. Offensive coordinator Todd Monken has spent his career building systems for quarterbacks who trust the structure of the offense over their own improvisation. For a long time, that fit favored Watson, a veteran who already speaks that language fluently. Sanders, by contrast, had to learn it from scratch under the brightest possible spotlight. That trust between a play caller and his quarterback is not built overnight. It is built rep by rep, through every walkthrough nobody outside the building ever sees. And if Sanders is closing the distance in that department too, it does not just mean he is throwing better balls. It means Monken is starting to trust him with the offense itself. That is a different kind of progress, the kind that actually shows up on Sundays. So naturally, the rumors started. Whispers that Cleveland might be willing to move on from Sanders entirely, that a trade could be on the table if the front office decides his timeline does not match their patience. It is the kind of speculation that spreads fast in a league starving for storylines. But here is the thing nobody talking about a trade seems to be accounting for. Why would you sell low on a young quarterback the moment he starts trending up? Sanders is only in year 2 of a 4-year deal. The organization has barely scratched the surface of what he might become. Trading him now, right as the tape suggests he is improving week over week, would not be a bold move. It would be premature. It would be the kind of decision teams make when they panic instead of when they think. And through all of this noise, all of this speculation swirling around his name, Sanders himself has refused to play the comparison game publicly. He has said, in his own words, that measuring himself against another quarterback is a losing mindset, that true growth comes from chasing his own ceiling instead of glancing sideways at someone else's job title. It is easy to dismiss that as a soundbite, but watch the tape from this summer, and it starts to look like something more than a talking point. It starts to look like a mentality that is actually working. So where does that leave us right now, in the middle of July, with training camp looming and a decision still unmade? It leaves us with a quarterback battle that has completely flipped its expected script. The proven veteran is no longer the clear favorite. The rookie with a shaky first season is no longer the obvious backup plan. Somewhere in the space between those two realities, a genuine competition has opened up, one that insiders are now calling one of the most fascinating position battles in the entire NFL heading into this season. Nothing is decided yet. Watson could return to full health and remind everyone why the Browns bet so heavily on him in the first place. Sanders could hit a wall the moment Real bullets start flying in preseason games, when disguised coverage replaces the friendlier representatives of the close practice. Camp battles have a way of humbling players who look great in June and disappear by August. But right now, with training camp closing in and the pressure about to multiply, the momentum belongs to the player nobody expected to be this close. Picture the first preseason snap. Picture the moment the lights actually come on, the moment this stops being a story about practice reports and insider whispers and becomes a story about live football. Every throw from here forward will be dissected. That is what makes this the most compelling quarterback battle in the league right now. It is not a formality dressed up as a competition. It is real, and it is close, and nobody, not the coaches, not the front office, not the fans packing that stadium, actually knows how it ends. The gap is closing. The starting job is no longer promised. And for the first time since he arrived in Cleveland, Shedeur Sanders is not just fighting to prove he belongs in the league. He is fighting to win it. And that fight is only just getting started.